Well, so many new albums have come out recently that I realized the only way to really do them justice is to do them in a quarter notes. And this one might be a little bit longer because I do have more to say than my usual quarter notes. And I mean, my quarter notes is usually those bands and artists that have put out an album that I really want to talk about, but I don't have really enough to say about a full length album review. So instead of just like spamming the YouTube algorithm with a video like every day, I figured I'll lump a bunch that have come out very recently into one go. So that's what we're doing here. So first up, we've got Bo Burnham with his album of Inside. And if you don't know about Bo Burnham at this point, he is a brilliant comedic singer-songwriter. I loved his work when he really got his start in the early 2010s, watching very raunchy puns essentially, and a lot of his YouTube videos that started him off and then rocketed him into these like one-man shows where he would do these extravagant comedy routines set to music. And he did a YouTube special of Inside, kind of documenting his experience artistically in the lockdown of 2020 and 2021. And it was heart-wrenching, beautiful, and I mean, as an individual of that certain age, I definitely found myself in his presentation in a lot of his tracks. And I love how the kind of like the tracks themselves go from being these very cohesive sketches, and then they slowly dissolve into this breakdown of the human spirit by the end of it. And it really is a heart-wrenching display of this artistic expression of an individual slowly losing himself and finding solace in his art, but realizing that that's not going to sustain him. You know, you still need interactions with other people. You still need to go outside, and being barred from that really does take its toll, especially when you're an artist that gets so much feedback from a live audience. So it was beautifully done, and I love so many of these tracks on here. Like White Woman's Instagram is just hilarious. I love, Shit, You Feel Like Shit, because, I mean, we definitely do. Everybody's already saw Welcome to the Internet, which I think is good. But the one that I cannot stop really listening to, we've got Comedy that really starts it off. And I really do love the boogie that is Jeff Bezos, or Bezos 1 and 2. But as I mentioned, the one that really, really gets me is All Eyes on Me. The one that really showcases his need for this attention, but also how he's being neglected of it and the toll that it's taking on him. So it's an endeavor of so much synthesized into a beautiful package. So if you haven't already, this one I love with my whole heart. Very, very easily do I love it with my whole heart. And if it isn't on my top 10 albums of this year, I will be very surprised. So moving on from there, let's go to Big Mess by Danny Elfman. So for those of you that don't know, Danny Elfman is a brilliant, brilliant composer of music. He's done so many scores for movies. I mean, he did Spider-Man. He did, well, the original Raimi Spider-Man. He's done pretty much all of Tim Burton's movies. He also got his start in the 80s with the band Oingo Boingo. And he's done a few things for himself. Let's just have a look to see what else he's done. I mean, he's got a heck of a lot of albums. What other one? Oh, he did Doolittle, Men in Black, The Grinch Stole Christmas, Good Will Hunting, Justice League. So, like, the guy's got a massive, massive repertoire in terms of musical scores. He also did the original Hulk from 2003. Holy jeez. I mean, I'm looking through this. And then he has his own solo album, which is So Low, which is just ridiculous. It is, like, crazy. And so Big Mess is his next big project that he's done. And much like Bo Burnham's Inside, it really does showcase an artist in this pandemic world. And this actually goes very well in tandem and in parallel to the other album that I reviewed in my other quarter notes of Gary Numan. I mean, both got their starts in the early 80s. Both were kind of that fun synthwave, new wave style of music. I think that... I would definitely more gravitate towards Danny Elfman, just with his quirkiness that he has on there. And then this album, much like Gary Numan's Intruder, is very dark. There's a lot of very dark pieces on here, especially on the first disc, because it is a double discer. But like pretty much every track from that first disc, outside of the first track of Sorry and a few other ones, like maybe Everybody Loves You and We Belong, are very melodramatic. They're very atmospheric. They're very dark. They're very intimate. I do love his interplay of the different sounds and the different expressions on tracks like Sorry and Dances with Lemurs, where there's a lot of these different soundscapes that are on it. But really, for me, the second disc is the highlight. And I love tracks like Happy, Devil Take Away, Better Times, and Insects, the final track. But there's so many of these like really off-kilter and avant-garde tracks like Kick Me, Cruel Compensation, and Just a Human that just is a complete mind screw of a musical expression. It's very like almost Scott Walker meets Robert Fripp at times, because there's a lot of guitar works on here that mimic and take inspiration for a Robert Fripp jazz style of music that we would hear from like Lark's Tongue and Aspect or Starless and Bible Black. It sounds a lot also like some of the weirder stuff that Devin Townsend has put out. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, I would highly recommend checking this one out. If it doesn't, it is a pretty big jagged pill to try to swallow. For me, this one is more on a stream side of things. I would still recommend it. I would still check it out, but I was hoping for a little bit more atmosphere and a little bit more fun on this. Like, there is still fun to find, right? Like Happy and Sorry and a few other ones are very like joyful in a comedic side of way, but I also feel like it's a little much at times. So yeah, it's kind of a stream. Go and check it out if you're kind of into this weirder kind of expression of music. But I wouldn't go running out for it as well. And I mean, my biggest thing is that it ends just on Insects, which is kind of a bloof. It doesn't really resolve anything by the end. It's just kind of like a blah. So yeah, that's where I'm at for this one. Let's move on to the next one. The Battle at Garden's Gate from Greta Van Fleet. So this one is, like, I always thought this was their third studio album, but apparently From the Fires was an EP. I always considered it an actual album rather than an EP. And Anthem for a Peaceful Army was their kind of sophomore album, but oh well, what do I know? So Battle at Garden's Gate is either their second or third album. And the thing that I really do enjoy about this band is the celebration of music. I love that even though it is a very blatant ripoff of the 70s rock that Led Zeppelin and Rush and a lot of those bands really captivated, I still love that expression of music. And I love that they have their own little spin on this one. It doesn't feel as closely linked to those past artists. I also love some of the compositions on this and how it's able to kind of dip and dive in terms of their musical experiences. I love so many tracks on this one. I keep singing the track from Heat Above over and over again in my mind. But I mean, not all the tracks are stellar. I will say that My Way Soon is kind of a B-side of a lot of Led Zeppelin tracks. I'm not all that excited for, but I do love how this band is able to ebb and flow a great track, and you just need to listen to the third track of Broken Bells for that. Like, I love the use of the keyboards and synths on here that a lot of those other bands from the 70s didn't really utilize all that much. So I love a lot of these ebbs and flows. Now, this album isn't without criticism. I do think that the album does go on for a little bit too long. I feel like they probably could have cut about 4 or 5 tracks and not really lost anything. I really did like how the first 2 albums, or I guess their first album and their EP, was very succinct. It was very tight. There wasn't any filler, where I do feel like there's a number of filler tracks on here. I already mentioned My Sweet Way, but also Age of Machine, Carnival, and The Barbarians feel a little bit of like a filler track, and if you had cut these and put these out on like an EP, it probably would have serviced the album a lot better, and you would have had a really stellar EP at the end of the day. But I also love some of the more fun styles of the music that we have on here. I love the closing track of The Weight of Dreams, and I do love the play out. It is a little bit repetitive and it is a little bit cheesy, but I still love it. I still think it's a really great expression, and I like how the lead singer is trying something new, trying a little bit more within his voice. I know some people don't like it all that much. I don't really have that much of a problem to it. So yeah, I think Battle at Garden's Gate is a great addition to this style of rock, and even though there is that, is rock dying because bands like Greta Van Fleet are out here just mimicking things from the 70s? I mean, they do have a case in that. Like, that isn't wrong. This is one that I've picked up in physical format. I have the LP, and I love listening to it. So yeah, this is one that I picked up in physical format. Easy peasy. Yeah, let's move on to the next one. Nephila, their debut album, self-titled too. So this one just came out of nowhere for me. I have a couple other YouTube channels that I use whenever I'm searching for songs so that I can put into my videos, and I don't want to screw up the algorithms that I've already got on my other channels. And this album was recommended to me on one of those channels, and it really surprised me. It reminds me a lot of Person, and the lead singer-songwriter of that, of Rosal Cunningham. It has that same kind of 60s, 70s psychedelic acid rock that I really love. And these guys sound almost like a carbon copy to that Person band. And it's almost criminal how closely it sounds. I mean, what really caught my eye was the picture, the main title there. I love moose, so of course I love it. It reminds me of like a Baroness album cover. But coming back to the comparisons with Person, tracks like You Know Who You Are and Guidance to Agony feels like they are directly lifted off of the Person album of Desire's Magic Theater. Not only the guitar work, but the overall structure of the track. But I will say, I still love the expression. Like, I do love where the track Guidance to Agony goes. I love the ebb and flow and the styles that we have on this. I love the track of like Belladonna and how it's able to really usher this really groovy flow to it. The last track of Alla Galaxer Centrum is like almost a 10-minute romp, and I love the playing styles and the guitar works near the end. I think this is a really great expression, even if it is so closely linked to an album that I already love. Like, if this were another release from Person, I would have said something like, I love it, it's a little too close to their first album for me to really dig into it, but as it is, I still really enjoy the expression on here. And I have to say something very similar to how I'm saying here. I hope and I wish that whatever project that Nephila does next is a little less close to their sources of Person and much more their own style and their own impression. So for this one, I will pick it up in physical format for sure. I think it's a great addition to a rock collection, and I thoroughly enjoy it, and I really hope that you guys will check it out. So that's where I'm at for Nephila's first album. 2 thumbs up, gets the note seal of approval. Go and check it out if you haven't already. And that's it. Those are the 4 albums that I've got on this edition of Quarter Notes. What did you guys think? What did you think of the 4 albums? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? Which ones have you listened to? Which ones have you not? And do you love them or do you hate them? Let me know all of that by commenting down below. And if you like what you see and you want to help support me, consider donating to my Patreon. I've left the link down below. Even $1 a month does go a long way. You get your name at the end credits, and you get shoutouts on all of my live streams, which I'm trying to do more of, and I'm getting pretty good at them. So yeah, yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.